Hi everyone. My name is Lamon. I am one of the MCG Education Committee e-board members. I've been involved with MCG since my freshman year. I did the Dean's Case, EY TechX Case competition, and I was also a member of the Consulting Development Program. So would you like to introduce yourself, Anna?
Hi everyone, I'm Anna. Wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm Anna. I'm a sophomore and I'm currently on the competitions committee for MCG. I've been involved since last year. I participated in the Dean's Case and the TechX case, and then last spring I was in the consulting development program with Lamon.
Awesome. So today we would like to talk about the importance of public speaking. We'll give you guys some tips and tricks on how to deliver your speech, and we'll also do some fun activities. We'll cover PowerPoint and how to format financials properly, and we'll conclude our presentation by showing you guys how to make your deck look much better with slide visuals. Okay, so it's not a surprise that public speaking is extremely important, and people agree with that. 70% of employed Americans believe that public speaking skills are critical for their jobs. And that's true because 65% of recruiters believe that public speaking and communication skills, they value public speaking much more than your college major. Yet, 75% of people suffer from anxiety when delivering speeches. And here's a quote that I love. The ability to speak in front of an audience will put you ahead of your peers for promotions and opportunities. So, when are public speaking skills important? You guys will all go through different interview processes when applying to different internships, full-time positions, or maybe some clubs on campus. When you have good public speaking skills, you will appear much more informed, and it will put you ahead of your peers. You will also do a lot of case competitions and presentations, believe me when I say that. And judges, usually it's like so important to impress judges with good public speaking skills, and I can't stress that enough. You also communicate a lot. You communicate with your peers, with your friends, with your family members, with your teachers and recruiters. So if you have good communication skills, you will appear much more knowledgeable and informed. And an amazing example of the importance of public speaking are public speakers, because they have the ability to motivate others to pursue their ideas and achieve their goals just because they have good communication skills and they know what they're talking about. So while it is extremely important to have good public speaking skills, it is even more important to know what you're talking about. Because even if you're an amazing presenter, but you don't have facts, you don't know what you're talking about, you will not appear knowledgeable on this topic. So when working on case competitions, always do your research first. You need to have a solid idea on what the case is about, what's happening with this company. You will appear much more confident when presenting, and the judges will be impressed by you. This is my favorite part. You always need to add attention grabbing facts and even personal examples, because this way the audience will be engaged and they will develop interest in the topic. Also, always cite your resources in the appendix. Anna will talk more about that, about the appendix, but just keep in mind that you need to have facts, sources, reliable sources in the appendix, because that way you will be able to answer the judges' questions more efficiently. So it is important to practice beforehand. I always suggest students to practice because while practicing, you will be able to figure out what your weaknesses are, how much time you spend talking, and it will make your presentation, your speech more consistent. Try to practice in front of the mirror. That way, you will be able to maintain eye contact. You will also know what your gestures are, you'll know your body language, and you'll be able to improve. However, do not over memorize. It is when working on case competitions and practicing beforehand, it's so easy to start memorizing every single word. But believe me or not, if you forget the word while presenting, you will be so stressed because you had that plan and now this plan is not working. So do not over memorize. Just know what you're talking about, know how much time it usually takes, and you'll be fine. Also, when you finish your presentation, your topic, always make sure to introduce the next speaker. That way, your presentation will be more clear and consistent. So, this is extremely important when presenting. Make sure that you should assume that you are the voice of the consulting firm. You are the consultant. You're not a freshman in college. You are not a Binghamton University student. You're the consultant, and you're presenting your recommendations to the board of the company. The judges, they're not, you should assume that the judges are part of that company. So you should always make sure to refer to them as if they were the board members of the company that you're working on. If I were to tell you what is the most important part of the workshop that I'm giving right now, it would be this one. When presenting, do not assume that you're a part of that company that you're working on. So instead of saying we should, for example, um, advertise our company more on social media, say our firm believes that your company should advertise your business on social media more. So that way, you will make sure that you are the consultant, part of the consulting firm, and the judges are the board of the company. And I know that it's so easy to get extremely emotional when working on case competition because you worked a lot, you put so much time and effort, but please always be respectful when answering the questions of the judges, because these people, they take the time to help you, to listen to your opinions, and just you can disagree with them. That's totally okay. But when answering their questions, make sure that you are doing it in a respectful manner and very professionally. So there are some case presentation do's and don'ts, and I will go over them right now. When presenting, make sure that your the colors of team attire match. So, for example, if you have like everyone in the team should have black or dark blue suits, because that way you will appear more as if you're part of one firm and more professional. And you should also stand in a straight line and speak in order. So what usually people do is they stand in order from left to right. And also you should project your voice and maintain a steady tone. For example, um, in some teams, there are people who speak extremely loudly. They speak very fast, others do not. So it's important to practice beforehand, not just on your own, but with all of your teammates. So that way you will be able to develop a consistent and very clear tone, and you will do great. Also, take your time to think about answering the question, because it's much more important to answer the question correctly rather than answering it super fast. And there are also some presentation don'ts. So do not fidget around the presentation, and do not avoid eye contact. I know that it can be scary when you're presenting, you're so excited, you're so emotional. Do not avoid eye contact and do not stare at the slides only. And as I said, do not be aggressive when answering questions because it's extremely disrespectful to people who take their time to help you. And just don't use filler words such as like, and you'll be fine. So, fun time, activity time. You guys have 30 seconds to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and talk about your favorite class. It is super casual, so do not worry about it at all. Do not be stressed. It is just feel free to unmute yourself, talk about your favorite class, and have fun. I hope we'll have some volunteers.
I could start if no one's gonna do it.
Okay, great. Thank
I'm
you.
Joe. I'm the head of competitions for the Management Consulting Group. I'm a junior, majoring in accounting and finance. This semester, I'm taking just strictly accounting and finance classes. So right now, my favorite class I'm taking is investments, learning about the stock market and different investing philosophies. And I found it really interesting given the current market conditions.
Awesome to hear. That was a great example of what your introduction, where he sounded very confident and he did it great. So, even if not everyone answered and did this activity, I would highly, highly recommend you guys to practice after this workshop in front of the mirror. That way, you will know that you can maintain eye contact, you'll know your body language, and you'll avoid using words such as or like. So now we're moving on to PowerPoint, which is my first personal favorite part about case competitions. So there are several things you should and should not do when working on PowerPoint. Your PowerPoint deck and all the information with all the graphs should be centered. So do not have your shapes going from one edge to another. If you have one graph, the graph should be in the center. Keep the font color scheme, titles, logos consistent in sizing and spacing, and do not use inconsistent formatting because inconsistent formatting can be so distractive. And if you have everything consistent, your deck will look much more clear and clean. Also, use classy fonts such as Times New Roman and avoid using default fonts. My personal favorite is Garamond. I always use it. I think it looks super nice and judges love it. Okay, so I love working with shapes. That's my favorite part. I always make them look nice and creative. And you should not be afraid to get creative too. But just keep in mind that having too many shapes or having a lot of complicated shapes can make your slides look a little bit messy. So don't be afraid to get creative, but know that everything is good in moderation. Okay, so it's also important to add slide numbers to every single one of your slides except the first slide, which is the title slide. Your the slide numbering can be located in any corner of the slide. You can even add it in the middle of your footer. But just make sure that your slide numbers are not too big, too bright, or too distracting. I personally made my first slide numbering that this big. It was so distracting, and now I'm not doing that anymore. I always use gray and small numbers. I usually add them at bottom left, so you could do that too. Running footer. So having a running footer is extremely important because judges, they just imagine they have to analyze your recommendations. They have to come up with some questions to ask you. They're trying to work on so many things at once, and having footer will just if the judges get distracted, having footer will make them be will make them know where you are in the presentation, and it also helps you too, because if you are answering the questions, having the footer will make you know your location in the presentation, what area you're in right now, and that way you will be able to answer the questions faster and much more efficiently. This is an amazing example of one of the most clean and common ways to depict the running footer. It's very concise, to the point, and has amazing colors and also fonts. So, Slide Master is something I struggled with a lot, but it's actually super easy. Now, when I know how to work with it, I can tell you guys it's really easy. You just open your PowerPoint, you go to View, you go to Slide, you choose the Slide Master icon, and you start working on that slide as if it's just your basic case competition slide. You add whatever you want. I usually add logos, footers, or maybe some borders. And if you have like slide design, that would be good to add it too. And that way you will spend much less time adding, copying, and pasting the same exact thing over and over again to different slides. Okay, so what is the purpose of Slide Master? Slide Master makes the repetitive tasks, it helps you with eliminating those repetitive tasks. If you need to add logos, footers that appear on every single one of your slides, you can just open Slide Master, add that footer or logo on that one slide, and it will appear on every single one of your slides. um, Slide Master, in Slide View, you can also make different slide master, so slide designs. For example, if you want to have different slide designs to your case competition recommendation slide and another one for your appendix slide, you can make two different designs, and you can actually make as many as you want. And when opening and closing Slide Master, just keep in mind that you can have the design that you had before starting to work on Slide Master. You can combine the one that you had before with the one that you have now, right now in the Slide Master. So that is super easy and convenient. Okay, so now I would like to pass it on to Anna to talk about Slide Master more, and she has a very interesting question for you guys.
Thanks, Maman. So the main question on this slide is, what is wrong with it? And while there are a few different things that you shouldn't be doing on the slide in your actual case competitions, there is something that stands out above the rest of them, and it's that you should never, ever, ever use animations on your slides. They can be distracting not only to the judges, but to the presenters as well. It's a waste of time, especially during your case competitions when you have a time limit. Overall, just don't use animations. It looks very unprofessional. So during your case competitions and when you make PowerPoints, SmartArt is going to be your best friend. If you go to the insert button on the ribbon and then click on SmartArt, it's going to give you a bunch of different shapes and formatting options. With SmartArt comes different strengths, but also different limitations. So I'm just going to briefly go over a few of those. So something that's really beneficial about SmartArt is that all of the designs are creative, so it can help you make each of your slides very unique. If you use the same few boxes on every single slide, not only would it become repetitive, but all of your slides would kind of blend together, which can be distracting for you and for the judges. Also, if you want to make your own slide designs, you can use SmartArt as inspiration. You can look through all of the preset options and kind of base off your own design off of those. Also, SmartArt can be easily altered and converted into shapes. I'm going to teach you how to convert it into shapes in a few slides, but basically if you want to make it more creative by picking your own colors, your own sizes, and move the shapes around, if you convert it into shapes, you get more freedom with that. Also, another strength of SmartArt is that it automatically changes the font size in the same thing of SmartArt to match each other. This can save you time because you won't have to look through all of the tedious little details like the font size in every single box because you know it'll match. However, this can also pose a limitation because if you want one box to have a larger font size than the other in the same smart art, this isn't possible, so you'd have to convert it to shapes and then do it manually. Also, you have to be very careful when you pick which type of smart art you want to use because some of them don't really make logical sense with the content that's being portrayed, and that would just become distracting for the judges. Also, you should be careful and double check everything when using smart art because you might not even realize that a shape has changed sizes. If you go to change one of them, most likely it'll change all of them. So this could make it easier to have formatting inconsistencies. As you know, your financial implication slide is very important for your presentation. And while the numbers are the most important part of these slides, you also want to make sure that it's formatted properly. Basically, if you just have a jumble of numbers, it's distracting for the judges because they'll be spending their time looking through the numbers and trying to understand it themselves instead of listening to you and your explanation. So if you decide to use Excel to make your financials, we recommend formatting it within Excel because there's a few more options. We think you should remove your grid lines from the graph like you have on the right there. Basically, if you have different colors, those grid lines aren't really necessary and it just makes the slide a little bit busier. Also, once you finish formatting the graph or the chart or whatever you decide to make the way you want to in Excel, you can copy it in as a picture and paste it into PowerPoint. This just means that you can make the graph larger or smaller once it's in PowerPoint, and it won't lose any clarity, meaning it won't become blurry. Obviously, it won't look good if it's blurry, so this is very beneficial. The same applies, like I said, for any graphs, pictures, charts, whatever you want to paste from Excel. Also, very important to keep in mind is if you do use Excel for your financials, make sure that you save the spreadsheet because you might realize you made a mistake or you might need to change something. That way you won't have to start your financial slide over again completely. You can just fix the little mistake you made and then repaste it back into PowerPoint. This slide might seem a little bit self-explanatory, but it's still important to go over. Basically, when you submit your PowerPoint to the judges, do it as both a PowerPoint and a PDF. Even though everything's over Zoom right now, so this isn't a huge deal, when you do present in person again, you might be using someone else's computer, so it might not be compatible with the PowerPoint that you made on yours. PDFs basically ensure that the formatting would be conserved. So like I said before, you can convert your smart art into different shapes to give yourself more creativity with each slide. So how you would do that is you would select the smart art that you want to convert, and then in the ribbon, go to the second design tab, and then all the way on the right side, it says convert. Once you click that, you can have the option to convert it into shapes. If you want to convert multiple smart arts all at the same time, you can click Control Shift and then click, or Command Shift click depending on your computer. And that way you can select every smart art you want to change all at once. So here's an example of smart art being used properly. On the left side, you have a box in the middle that says appealing to millennials, and surrounding it is different recommendations on how to do this. The arrow then points at the result from following these recommendations. It makes sense logically and chronologically. This is smart art being used properly and it looks great. These are 3 examples of smart art not being used properly. So on the left, the triangle is really unnecessary and just a waste of space. Unless your recommendation has something to do with a pyramid, it's really not necessary. The funnel, it's never really necessary. I can't think of any reason why you should use it. You can basically only fit one word in each circle. And I know it looks kind of cool, but again, there's no point in using it. Also, the arrow can be a little bit tricky because for a timeline, if you want to use it, then go ahead. Otherwise, if you're going to be using an arrow in your PowerPoints, make sure that's pointing at something. Otherwise, it's just a distraction and a waste of space. Color scheme can also be very important in your PowerPoints. These 2 boxes have the exact same words in them, yet it's much, much easier to read the box on the right. So when you're deciding on your color scheme, you should look at the company that the case is based around and kind of base your PowerPoint theme after that. However, certain colors can be too bright or too aggressive, like red, So in that case, if you do still want to use a red, you can just change the shade that you're using to make it duller or less shocking. Like you can use maroon, and certain colors can be too dim, like yellow or that green box up there. If you want to use those colors, you can adjust it so that they're a little bit darker. So instead of yellow, you can use gold, and instead of this shade of green, you can use a forest green. Also make sure that if you're using a light font, you have a dark background and vice versa, just so it's easier to read. This isn't super important right now with everything over Zoom, but in the future, you might be presenting using a projector. So if you know that you'll be doing that, definitely trial your slide deck with one before you present, just because the colors can be changed a little bit through a projector. You can use an open room in either classroom wing or the SOM building, which is academic A. So your appendix is actually pretty important, even though you know while making it that not every single slide is going to be seen depending on which questions are asked. You should make it assuming that every single slide will be looked at in great detail by the judges. It should still look good and be organized. And if you do take the time to make it look as nice as your main slides, it'll be very impressive and it'll definitely help your scoring from the judges. Also, we recommend making a second agenda slide for the transition between the end of your presentation and the first question. Basically, I'm sure you all know about your slide that says, thank you, any questions? We recommend adding a slide after that that has basically a table of contents for your agenda. This helps you because when you get asked a question, you can look at it and see where exactly the slides to help you answer that question will be. Also, you can consider making a second running footer for your appendix. It's not necessary, but if you have the time, it looks very professional and it will help you out. So this, I was actually gonna do a demonstration, but I was just testing it out and my computer was kind of glitching. So I'm gonna explain it to you, and afterwards, if you have questions, I can try the demonstration again and hopefully it'll work. But basically, when you hyperlink your appendix, it's not necessary, but it also looks very impressive. What you would do is right click on the title of your appendix slide, and it'll give you the option to get a link to the slide. You would then go to each of your different appendix slides, and how we think it looks nice is going to the title, so right up there, if you can see my mouse, and you would highlight that and then add the link to that slide. Basically, then once you finish a question, instead of clicking back through every single appendix slide, you could just click on the title and it'll take you right back to that agenda, table of contents slide. Like I said, it's not necessary and you may never get the opportunity to use it. But if you have time, I definitely recommend adding it in because it looks very impressive and very professional. If anyone has any questions, you can either type them in the chat or unmute yourself to ask.